CattleUSA Daily Podcast. Happy Thursday, everyone. Today we are back and talking more about some common misconceptions that we see out in the world against animal agriculture and specifically the beef industry, and how as producers we can truly understand what consumers are thinking, the facts behind those, and preparing ourselves for having these discussions and being able to stand up for animal agriculture with quick one-line facts, tidbits of information that you guys can write down in your notes app. You can try and relate to your memory or just whatever that may be for you to be an advocate for agriculture and continue to get our consumers in an educated standpoint. Because if we're not educated, then how do we expect our consumers to be educated, right? We have to, as a producer base, first and foremost, be willing to stand up for what we believe in, but then also be educated ourselves. If we can't sit there and explain why your beef isn't full of hormones and antibiotics and what that looks like, then how can we expect our consumers to understand that, right? How can we expect them not to fall into misinformation and clickbait marketing and everything else that is out there if we're not even educated on it ourselves? So that is what we're back talking about today. I did an episode on this last week and it was so much fun. So today I've got two claims that we're going to discuss with you guys. I'm going to give you the facts and then I'm going to give you some quick little tidbits of information that you can really relate to memory. And I'm also, before I give you the facts, I'm going to be giving you what people are thinking. Where is our consumer base really thinking about all of these things? So first and foremost, claim number one, let's jump right into it. Beef is full of hormones and antibiotics. This is a really common one, right? We see it all the time, especially we have seen a lot of fear-based marketing start to come out over the past couple years, really starting to label antibiotic use and hormone use in beef production. So when a label gets put on something, our brains automatically think that, okay, well, if this is saying antibiotic free, then that means that pieces of meat that don't have that label on there, that means that's lower quality. That's where our brain goes. It was the same thing with GMOs 5 to 10 years ago when all of that started coming out. Even when they were putting GMO free on orange juice and there's no GMO'd oranges, people still were buying the GMO free labeled orange juice because they thought that they were making a healthier choice for their family. What are people thinking? What are our consumers thinking? Consumers are thinking that cattle are injected with constant hormones, and then they are thinking that meat is unsafe or unnatural because of the antibiotic use that we are using. So here's the facts. Straight facts, no opinion. The facts on hormones. Growth promotants are used under strict regulation by the FDA. Strict regulation by the FDA. This is an important area to plug that if you can, right? That even if a producer chooses to use these, which is it is a producer by producer standpoint, I'm not going to tell you whether it is right or wrong in any way, shape, or form because every operation is different. So even if a producer is choosing to use these, they are under strict regulation. And we have certain laws that we have to abide by in order for this to then become a consumer food product, right? Next thing with hormones. Hormone levels in beef are extremely small. For instance, a 3 ounces of beef from a hormone-treated steer contains 1.9 nanograms of estrogen. For reference, a potato has 225 nanograms, and a soybean has about 1,200 plus nanograms of estrogen. This is a great area to show that, yes, if a hormone-treated steer goes to slaughter, there is a chance of having some hormones come up in testing. But if they do, it is so minute that it's barely traceable. 1.9 nanograms. Do you have any idea how small that is? That is an insanely small amount. And then it's really great to take that and say, okay, here are things that we're not pumping hormones into, but they are naturally occurring, right? We're naturally occurring hormones in all of these vegetables that you are eating every single day. And then it's even better if you can add on top of that the human body makes far more hormones naturally than you would ever get from beef. Far more hormones every single day or every single month that the human body is making these hormones and cycling through that than you would ever see from beef at the store. Okay. So that's hormones. That's the facts. Those are really great tidbits of information to write down in your notes apps or just try and relay to your memory that, you know what, 3 ounces of beef from a hormone treated steer only has 1.9 nanograms of estrogen in it in comparison to potatoes that have 225 or a soybean that has 1200, right? So really just reciting that into your memory. That way, when that discussion comes up, you are equipped with 3 different main talking points for that. Okay. Antibiotics. So here's the facts. As you all know, antibiotics are used to treat or prevent illness, not to fatten cattle up, which is a common misconception that we have started to see within a consumer population. And I know that you're probably seeing that and you're like, wait, what? People think we're using antibiotics to fatten cattle up. That doesn't make any sense. People have human antibiotics, so why would they think that animal antibiotics would fatten cattle up? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. It is a concern that consumers have. So it's really important to really emphasize why we use antibiotics and then really emphasize the fact that no beef enters the food supply with antibiotic residue. This is federally regulated and we have levels that all beef gets tested for and has to be at. And we are almost always at 0 for that, right? And there are certain levels of residue that are allowed to be left, but it is so minute again. So really on this, emphasize the fact that no beef enters the food supply chain with antibiotic residue. And then with that, you can say, but even before an animal enters the food supply chain, how we're making sure that we are staying up to date on this and all of that is with these strict withdrawal periods that we have with these antibiotics, really emphasizing the fact that we want to ensure food safety with harvest. We don't want to send an animal to harvest that has had an antibiotic within that withdrawal period, because then that animal doesn't get put into the food system. And that's a waste of an animal, right? So we don't want that. And so really emphasizing those strict withdrawal periods, we are heavily regulated on our antibiotic use, what all of that looks like. And at the end of the day, emphasizing that antibiotics save lives and the beef that you buy is residue free. People that really want to push antibiotic-free meat or meat that has never been touched by antibiotics, in my opinion, that's an animal welfare issue. Like, if you want me to look out at my feed yard and see a calf with foot rot and not go treat it with antibiotics, that's an issue, right? That animal is suffering, and we have a great proven way that I can go relieve that animal's suffering and that it can live its best life. Right? So I go into the animal welfare side a lot on antibiotics of, hey, you know what? If that is a choice that you are making, awesome. But from a producer standpoint, this is where I'm coming from. We are not giving every single animal antibiotics. We are not pumping them full of these things to fatten them up. We are using them as a preventative measure the same way that you would go to the doctor for an ear infection and get put on antibiotics. You're on them for 2 weeks. You might feel like some stuff in your gut for about a month after that, but then you're good, right? It's the same with cattle. The same exact way. We are treating them for their cattle versions of ear infections and sore throats and all of these things that are preventable illnesses if we are able to treat them with high quality antibiotics that have been proven to work for generations. I think it is extremely important that as producers, we are able to effectively communicate hormones and antibiotics and our decisions to use them within the industry. These are 2 areas that are under attack so heavily from our consumer population. And we need to be able to stand up for them and say, this is why. This is why we are using these things. And this is why you are safe to eat this beef. And that at the end of the day, no one cares more about safe, healthy beef than the people raising it. We would be out of jobs if we didn't produce safe, healthy beef. So we want to continue to provide that because guess what? I wouldn't be feeding it to my family unless it was safe, unless it was healthy, and unless it was extremely nutritious for us. Okay, claim number 2. This one is going out of kind of the consumer population a little bit and more into I don't know, world standings, or I don't really know how to categorize it, but it is a claim that we see really often. It is, we could feed more people if everyone stopped eating meat. That is the claim. And this really leans into the amount of land that it takes to raise cattle. And here's what people are thinking. We're going to dive right into it, talk about what people are thinking, and you'll understand more on this. Okay, so what people are thinking. Crops are fed to animals instead of people. Okay, that's a thought. We're going to dive into that. Number 2, plant-only agriculture is more efficient and would solve global hunger. This is really leaning into a global standard of why aren't we raising more corn, more soybeans, more rice, more things that can solve global hunger, solve food insecurity here in the United States, all of those things, right? Okay, so let's dive into the facts. The facts of this. Cattle upcycle. Over 90% of what cattle eat is completely inedible to humans. So this is where we're thinking things like corn stalks or cottonseed hulls or distiller grains or other byproducts that are completely inedible to humans. Cattle turn non-human food and non-human land into a high-quality protein. This is where I really, really like to emphasize this, that they are big upcyclers, and they are turning food that we cannot eat and land that we cannot inhabit or cannot farm, so non-arable land where we can't grow crops on it, into a high quality protein source. Are we going to be out there in the middle of a extremely rocky pasture planting soybeans? Probably not. There are some people that do it, and I commend you for removing all of those rocks and being able to have an amazing farm ground there. But for the most part, on extremely rocky pastures, no, we're not going to be planting soybeans. We're going to be running cattle on it because it is land that is not feasible, and it would take more time than it is worth to make it arable, right? So cattle turn non-human food and non-human land into high quality protein. At the end of the day, removing meat doesn't magically redistribute calories. It would actually worsen nutrient deficiencies in vulnerable populations if we removed meat from the table. These people need meat the most, right? Yes, soybeans, rice, corn, all of these other amazing agricultural products are great options, but taking meat off the table does not solve this issue. Beef does not take away food from hungry people. It adds protein to plates that couldn't grow it any other way. Point blank, period. End of the day. It adds protein to plates that couldn't grow it any other way. So really emphasize the fact that cattle are turning that non-human food and non-human land into high-quality protein, and we're not taking away food from hungry people. We're actually upcycling it and turning it into an extremely high-quality protein source that would otherwise, what would we do with 90% of the food that cattle eat? If, we probably wouldn't be growing it in the first place, but then think about all of the byproducts that cattle eat. That would be just a huge waste and all of that jazz that it is just extremely, extremely important that we remember that with this argument, it goes into like a human rights thing, right? Like it goes into everyone wants to end world hunger, right? Like I would love it if world hunger would end, but taking meat off the table and taking beef off the plate is not going to solve that at the end of the day. So what can you guys be doing as producers? I want you to be opening your notes app. I want you to be writing these facts down. I want you to be reminding yourself daily so that these are things that just get absolutely ingrained into your head and that you're then able and prepared to share when these conversations come for you. When you're having these conversations, I want you to be kind and I want you to be clear when you're correcting misinformation. People don't know better. For the most part, most people don't know better. They're listening to people on TikTok, the news outlets, everything else like that at the end of the day is just feeding them misinformation. And how would they know better, right? So be kind, be clear, and remember that when we stay quiet, the loudest voice wins, even if they're wrong. So as agriculturalists, as producers, it is up to us to use these facts, post them, say them, own the truth of agriculture because the beef community has nothing to hide and everything to be proud of. Let's feed facts, not fear. as agriculturalists, we have a role and a responsibility to show up and to know why we are doing what we are doing and to be able to share about agriculture and why the beef industry is such an amazing thing, especially here in the United States. So thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, do all of the things. We really appreciate it here at the team. I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday, and we will see you all tomorrow on a Friday episode of the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. Have a good one, y'all.